Alfred Adler wasn't just another psychologist, he was a rebel. A former colleague of Freud who dared to say, "Your past doesn't define you, your choices do." While others focused on trauma and childhood wounds, Adler focused on freedom. And not just any freedom, the freedom to live without needing to be liked. Think about that. What if the very thing you're craving, approval, is what's holding you back? What if every polite nod, every forced smile, every "I'm fine" when you're not, is another bar in the prison you built trying to be acceptable? This isn't a call to arrogance. It's a call to courage. The courage to be disliked and still show up. To risk being misunderstood and still speak your truth. In this video, we'll explore Adler's radical philosophy and what happens when you finally stop performing and start living. Not everyone will like what you're about to hear. And that's the point. You probably don't even notice it anymore. That little pause before saying something honest. That subtle censoring. The slight recalibration of your tone, just in case someone might not like what you're about to say. It's almost automatic now. From school to work, from family to social media. We've been conditioned to seek approval like a form of currency. The likes, the nods, the compliments, they feel like oxygen. But here's the paradox. The more you chase them, the less you breathe. You begin to shrink your personality to fit expectations that aren't even yours. It starts early. A child learns fast that smiling gets rewarded and anger gets punished. Not just with discipline, with silence, with disapproval. So we adapt. We become the version of ourselves that's the most palatable, the least confrontational. Over time, this curated self becomes our full-time mask. And here's where it gets dark. We begin to forget what we look like underneath it. We lose track of what we actually believe, desire, or fear, because every thought first goes through the filter of, will they like me if I say this? And that's how it becomes a prison. Not a dramatic, locked cell kind of prison, but a velvet cage. Comfortable, quiet, but suffocating. Every moment you suppress a truth to stay likable. You trade authenticity for acceptance. Adler wasn't vague about this. He saw it clearly. The desire to be liked is one of the biggest obstacles to living freely. But if that's the case, what does freedom actually look like? Freedom, in Adler's world, doesn't mean doing whatever you want. That's childish. Real freedom, he says, is the ability to live without being enslaved by the expectations of others. It's not about breaking rules for the thrill. It's about no longer needing validation to feel worthy. Adler flipped the script. While most psychological theories look backward, into traumas, childhood wounds, parental influence, Adler looked forward. He believed your past doesn't define you. What defines you is the purpose you give to your behavior today. That's where it gets radical. If you're not shaped by your past, you're responsible for your present. No more excuses. That voice in your head saying, "I can't do this because I was never good at it." Adler would call that a life lie. It's not the past holding you back. It's your belief that the past has power over you. So freedom, to him, is breaking that chain. Choosing goals that are yours, not inherited or imposed. Living not to meet expectations, but to express intention. And that includes how you deal with judgment. According to Adler, the moment you let go of the need to be liked, you reclaim your life. You stop performing and start existing. But here's the twist. If you no longer care about being liked, how do you handle being disliked? Because that's what comes next, and most of us are not ready for it. Here's a truth we don't like to admit. No one sees you as you are, they see you as they are. Every opinion, every judgment, every compliment or insult thrown your way is filtered through the other person's fears, desires, beliefs, and biases. When someone says you're selfish, what they often mean is, you're not doing what I want. When they say you've changed, it usually means you've stopped prioritizing me. Adler called this out with clarity. There is no objective evaluation in human relationships. Think about how much weight you give to other people's opinions. A look, a comment, even a sigh can ruin your day or lift it. But what if those signals say more about them than about you? One person praises your boldness, another calls it arrogance. One admires your independence, another calls it coldness. The same trait, viewed through different lenses, tells a different story. So why do we anchor our identity in something as unstable as external judgment? Let that sink in. You're allowing strangers, or even loved ones, to define your worth based on their emotional weather. And when you live by their forecasts, you're always carrying an umbrella. Adler's message is simple but seismic. Stop trying to be understood. It's not a universal right. It's a rare gift. And obsessing over it can lead to the very thing you fear, rejection. So if everyone is projecting, the question becomes, why are we still so desperate to please them? You probably think you're just being kind. That's saying yes, being flexible, avoiding conflict. It's all part of being a good person. But here's the uncomfortable truth. People-pleasing is often a disguised form of manipulation. Not malicious, not conscious, but still manipulation. Why? Because deep down, you're not doing it just to help. You're doing it to be liked, to avoid rejection, to stay safe. Adler would call this a distortion of relationship. You're not engaging as an equal, you're performing for approval. The more you please, the more invisible you become. Slowly, you stop expressing your own needs, your boundaries dissolve, and your identity starts to revolve around other people's comfort. You say yes when you want to say no. You nod when you want a challenge. You apologize for things you didn't do. And here's the worst part. You start to resent the very people you're trying to please. Because deep down, a part of you knows you've abandoned yourself. Adler's concept of separation of tasks is key here. You are not responsible for how others feel about your choices. Their disappointment? That's their task. Your job is to live with integrity, not to manage everyone's emotions. But people-pleasing is sneaky. It wears the mask of virtue. And the longer you wear that mask, the more you fear taking it off. So what happens when you finally do? When you risk hearing, "I'm disappointed in you," and choose to stand firm. At first, disapproval stings. It's visceral. You feel it in your chest, like a tightening. Someone frowns, criticizes, unfollows, or simply pulls away, and your brain screams, you did something wrong. But pause. Breathe. What if that feeling wasn't a signal of failure, but a sign of growth? Adler believed that disapproval, when handled with awareness, could become one of your greatest allies. Not because it feels good, but because it tests your convictions. If your self-worth survives a wave of disapproval, it's probably rooted in truth. Imagine saying no to someone for the first time, really saying it calmly, firmly. You feel the tremor inside, the guilt rising. But then something unexpected happens. Nothing collapses. Maybe they're annoyed, maybe they lash out, but you're still standing. That's power. Not over them, but within yourself. The courage to be disliked isn't about enjoying rejection. It's about not letting fear of it steer your life. Every no that comes from integrity is a yes to your authentic self. Over time, you realize something strange. The people who truly respect you, they stay. The ones who only like the version of you that conformed, they fade. And that's a blessing in disguise. Adler knew, when you stop chasing approval, you make room for real connection. But here's where it gets sharper. Freedom isn't just about who approves of you. It's about knowing what belongs to you and what doesn't. Adler introduced a deceptively simple concept that has the power to change your relationships overnight. Separation of tasks. It means asking one clarifying question in every situation. Whose task is this? If it's your responsibility, own it. If it's not, let it go. Sounds obvious, right? But most of us live tangled in tasks that don't belong to us. We worry about what others think, how they react, whether they're happy, whether they approve. But here's the truth. Their reactions aren't your task. Your task is how you show up. Let's say you decide to quit your job and pursue a passion. Your parents panic, your friends doubt you, your colleagues gossip. That discomfort? It's theirs, not yours. If your decision came from alignment and not ego, you don't need to manage their emotions. You're not responsible for their anxiety, nor for their approval. Adler's point was clear. Taking on other people's tasks creates unnecessary conflict and codependency. It's a trap that keeps you from moving forward. Once you learn to separate tasks, a strange kind of peace enters your life. You start to focus only on what you can control. You stop over-apologizing, over-explaining, over-correcting. You begin to respect boundaries, both yours and others. And with that respect comes clarity. Now, the real work begins. Living fully as yourself, even when it makes others uncomfortable. But to do that, you'll need one more ingredient. And it's the hardest one to practice. Most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of exposure. Afraid of showing who they really are and being met with silence, or worse, rejection. That's why we wear emotional armor, sarcasm, perfectionism, overachievement, even humor. These are all shields. But Adler's challenge is this. If you want real freedom, you have to risk being truly seen. No filters, no edits, no performance. Just you, messy, brilliant, insecure, alive. And that's terrifying. Because once people see the real you, their opinion hits differently. But here's the catch. You can't be loved for who you are if you never show who you are. If you only present the polished, curated version, you'll always live with the fear that their approval isn't real. That if they knew the whole you, they'd walk away. So what do? You hide. You shrink. You settle for surface-level connection. Adler calls this a kind of self-betrayal. A life lived for appearances is a life never truly lived. And the price is loneliness disguised as popularity. The irony is that the moment you stop hiding, something beautiful happens. You start attracting the people meant for you. Not the ones impressed by your mask, but the ones drawn to your essence. And you stop being drained by constant performance. But make no mistake, being seen requires courage. It's a daily decision. And once you start, the next question isn't, will they still like me? It's, what will happen when I no longer need them to? Something shifts, quietly, almost imperceptibly, the day you stop asking for permission to exist. You speak with more clarity, not because you're louder, but because you're not editing yourself mid-sentence. You walk into rooms differently, not to impress, but to participate. Life feels lighter, not because the weight disappeared, but because it's no longer made of other people's expectations. Adler wasn't offering a self-help trick. He was offering a path to psychological adulthood. When approval is no longer your drug, presence becomes your fuel. Relationships evolve, too. Some fade away, and yes, that can hurt. But others deepen in ways you never imagined. When you're no longer performing, the people around you feel it. Some will step back. Others will step closer. And suddenly, the ones who stay are not there out of obligation or image. They're there because they see you. And in return, you start seeing them, too. Not as sources of validation, but as fellow travelers, equals. And then comes the unexpected part. You begin to trust yourself. Not perfectly, not all at once, but enough. Enough to make decisions without replaying every conversation. Enough to rest without guilt. Enough to take risks without clinging to applause. It's not that judgment disappears. It doesn't. It just loses its power. Because once you stop seeking approval, you stop living in reaction. And you start living in alignment. So here's the question. Who would you be if you stopped needing to be liked? Not hypothetically, really. What conversations would you start? What projects would you begin? What boundaries would you finally draw? Most people never find out because they spend their whole lives editing themselves for an audience that keeps changing. But you've come this far. That means you're already different. You're ready. Start small. Let one no be enough. Let one moment of silence after speaking your truth not scare you away. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to fix anyone's disappointment. You just need to return to who you were before you started trying so hard to be accepted. Adler didn't say it would be easy, only that it would be liberating. And if this message shook something loose in you, good. That means you're alive. Don't let it fade. Leave a comment. Tell me what you're ready to do differently. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of truth-telling. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Because the courage to be disliked, it's not a moment. It's a muscle, and we're here to train it together.